Chapter 1. The Genesis of a Revolution. In the quiet confines of his laboratory, Professor Simon Winter, a renowned expert in the field of electromagnetic brain activity, was on the verge of a breakthrough. His life's work had revolved around the intricate dance of neurons and electrical impulses that made up the human brain. Professor Winter had been pioneering a treatment for Alzheimer's, harnessing the power of electromagnetic waves to forge new neural pathways, a hope for millions suffering from the debilitating disease. His research illustrated how the brain, running on subtle electric impulses, could be influenced and healed using targeted electromagnetic waves. The promise his work held for Alzheimer's was groundbreaking, offering a potential path to restoring memory and cognitive function. However, as Professor Winter immersed himself in his research, the world outside his laboratory began to unravel. Reports started flooding in of terrifying attacks by creatures of myth werewolves, ripping through cities and countryside alike. The chaos only escalated when a new threat emerged: the undead, or zombies, as they came to be known, shambling hordes of once humans now driven by a mindless hunger. As society crumbled under these relentless assaults, government agencies, desperate to maintain control and order, enlisted Professor Winter. They saw his research as a potential weapon, a way to manipulate brain activity, not just for healing, but for control. The professor, initially oblivious to their true intentions, was soon ensnared in their schemes. He was forced to pivot his research towards application that could serve the government's agenda. The agencies showed no interest in the welfare of the people. Their only focus was on retaining power. Professor Winter and his team were treated as pawns, their skills exploited to develop technologies aimed at controlling both the werewolf and zombie threats for the government's benefit. Professor Winter found himself trapped in a moral quagmire. His groundbreaking research, meant to be a beacon of hope for humanity, was now at risk of being twisted into a tool of domination. Chapter 2. The Spark of Rebellion. Time marched on in a world besieged by chaos, and within the confines of a high-security government facility, Professor Simon Winter worked tirelessly. Amid the tumult, he experienced a eureka moment, a breakthrough in his weapon research that could potentially turn the tide against the supernatural forces ravaging the world. Yet, as he witnessed the government's self-serving motives, he began to harbor doubts about the true purpose of his work. The government agencies, driven by a relentless thirst for power, showed little concern for the populace they were supposed to protect. Realizing his groundbreaking work was being exploited not to save humanity, but to control it, Professor Winter made a fateful decision. He withdrew his cooperation, refusing to hand over the final breakthrough. In response, the government agents, desperate to harness his genius, locked him in a cell. "You must give us the completion of the weapon," they demanded, their voices laced with frustration and greed. Professor Winter, resolute and unyielding, faced them with defiance. "The plans are there for all to see. Why don't you build it yourself?" he challenged. An agent, visibly angered, retorted, "The plans, yes, but the final piece is missing." With a calm yet firm tone, Winter replied, "Indeed, the final piece is my mind. I solved the problem. It's mine. You can imprison me, you can even take my life, but you will never own my mind." At that moment, the facility was besieged by an onslaught of undead. The government forces, caught off guard, rushed outside to defend the base against the unexpected attack. Seizing the opportunity amidst the chaos, Professor Winter made his escape. He took only his personal possessions, leaving behind everything provided by the government, including the diagrams of the weapon. In a secret location, far from the prying eyes of the government and the horrors of the world, Professor Winter set to work. With unwavering determination, he continued his research, his hands guided by years of expertise and a mind unshackled by external influence. He completed the weapon, a testament to human ingenuity and the indomitable spirit of a free mind. Professor Winter, a lone figure, standing against the backdrop of a world in turmoil, holding in his hands the key to potential salvation. Chapter 3. The Game of Shadows and Light. In the undead metropolis, a gathering of sinister importance took place. The Necromancer, surrounded by the Elders, conveyed his urgent need for their assistance. We must destroy the humans before the Lycans convert them into their kin, but something is amiss. The humans have found a way to decimate my legions without direct combat. I am intrigued to learn how. I need you to find out. Infiltrate the human camp. Gather this information for me. The Elders, bound by a sense of indebtedness to the Necromancer for relieving their eternal hunger, agreed to his request. As they departed for the human camp, the Necromancer's lips curled into a subtle, knowing grin. Meanwhile, at the human camp, in the command center, Alex, Eleanor, and Captain Knox were deep in discussion when suddenly 4 shadowy figures materialized within the tent. The Elders had arrived. Varric, the eldest, spoke first. We bear no ill will towards you, but we must discover how you neutralized an entire legion of undead. Alex, his expression hardening, responded, You turned your back on us for the undead. We have nothing to share with you. One of the Elders, revealing a hint of menace, countered, You realize we could easily annihilate your camp. We no longer need you for sustenance. Why not cooperate and live? At that moment, the stranger with the chrome mask entered the tent. I am the one you seek, he announced calmly. I'll grant you an audience. Varric turned to face the newcomer. So, you possess the power to incapacitate the undead? I am Winter, the stranger replied coolly. I do as I please. Another elder, sensing an opportunity, threatened. We will extract this ability from you, by force if necessary. Winter chuckled softly. Many have tried to take what does not belong to them. You are mere shadows. Do not provoke me, or I might just turn on the lights. As an elder shifted into a shadow, preparing to attack, Winter clicked a button on a small device. A combination of infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet light flooded the room. The elders screamed in agony, collapsing to the floor, overwhelmed by the simulated sunlight. You should know, sunlight comprises infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet light. Winter lectured, his voice calm but firm, all of which happened to be my areas of expertise. Flicking off the device, he added, I could end you all right now, but I have no desire for destruction. However, should you return, my courtesy will have its limits. As the elders hastily retreated from the tent, the camp leaders were left in silent awe of Winter's capabilities and resolve. Chapter 4. The Reluctant Genius. In the command tent of the camp, an air of uncertainty swirled around Professor Winter. The events of the day weighed heavily on him. I've been here for one day, and have already found myself in conflict, he stated, his tone laced with disappointment. This arrangement may be short-lived. I think it's best for me to take my leave. Alex, realizing the gravity of losing such a vital ally, quickly interjected. Wait, Winter, we genuinely need your expertise. Winter turned, his chrome mask reflecting the dim light of the tent. That's the problem, isn't it? Everyone always wants something. Instead of relying on their own intellect, they seek to use the power of another. It's always about controlling another mind to fulfill one's needs. I won't be part of such games." He paused, then continued, "And I warn you, do not attempt to follow me. My ability to incapacitate extends to humans as well. However, your undead friends will likely give you a wide berth for a while." With that, he tossed the tube containing the combination of infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet light to them. "Use this for your negotiations," he added. Elena, looking concerned, mentioned another looming threat. "There's also the matter of that gigantic werewolf creature. We have no means to stop something like that." Winter, his tone unchanging, replied, "That's correct. You don't." Without another word, he turned and walked out of the tent, leaving the group to ponder his parting gift and the ominous reality of the challenges ahead. The chapter concluded with Winter's departure, leaving behind a mix of awe, confusion, and a newfound tool in the tube of light. His brief presence had made a significant impact, but his sudden exit left the camp to face their dire situation with one less extraordinary mind to aid them. Chapter 5. The Tangled Web. In the undead metropolis, an air of frustration pervaded the Necromancer's lair. The Elder's report had done little to appease his growing concerns. They recounted their defeat, detailing their encounter with Winter and the surprising ease with which they were overpowered. The Necromancer's anger flared upon hearing their account. "First, the Lycans have something over us, and now even the humans, whom we considered the weakest threat, have gained an upper hand. This is unacceptable. We need to drastically rethink our strategies," he declared, his voice echoing through the dark chambers. His mind raced with possibilities. "We need a counter to that gigantic Lycan, the Alpha's monstrous creation. It's obviously a result of the Lycan curse, combined with some kind of gene acceleration liquid. I need to get my hands on a Lycan specimen," he mused, his thoughts already turning to new experiments. Turning to the Elders, he proposed, "Perhaps you can redeem yourselves by assisting me in this endeavor." The Elders, still reeling from their recent defeat and eager to regain favor, nodded in agreement, recognizing the urgency of the Necromancer's request. Later that night, the Elders gathered in secret, their voices low and filled with concern. "The Lycans are unaffected by our shadow forms, and they can easily overpower us. We need to approach this task with utmost caution," one elder murmured. Varric stepped forward, his expression grave. "We are now wholly reliant on the Necromancer. A realignment with the humans is out of the question, and if we were to fend for ourselves, we would surely starve. Yet the prospect of confronting the Lycans poses a significant risk. I cannot recall a single instance where one of our kind has triumphed against those creatures. We have indeed set ourselves upon a path fraught with troubles." Chapter 6. The Confrontation. The Elders, harnessing their shadow forms, moved swiftly and silently through the dense woods, homing in on the Alpha's location. Their journey, however, was abruptly interrupted by an unexpected presence. There, trudging through the woods with an air of regal power and a chrome mask reflecting the moonlight, was Winter. In the distance, a Lycan from the Alpha's patrol detected Winter's scent. With a guttural growl, it launched into a ferocious charge, teeth bared menacingly. The creature's movement was a blur of deadly intent as it closed the distance. The Elders, hidden in the shadows, watched intently, curious about the outcome of this inevitable clash. Just as the Lycan leapt into the air for a fatal strike, it suddenly stopped mid-air and collapsed to the ground, motionless. Winter, seemingly unfazed, continued on his path as if nothing had occurred. One of the Elders, amazed by the display of power, whispered, "Such power! If only we could harness it for ourselves." As they spoke, Winter abruptly stopped. He did not turn towards them, but the pause was enough to suggest he was aware of their presence. After a moment, he resumed walking. Did he know they lurked in the shadows? Varric, ever cautious, whispered, "Let's retrieve the Lycan. Forget the human. He's too powerful, despite his mortal form." The elders then set about dragging the fallen Lycan away. Suddenly, Winter's voice pierced the silence. "Hungry?" He stood before them, his tone almost mocking. The elders looked up, their expressions akin to those of thieves caught in the act. Winter, perceptive and unthreatened, observed. "Doing his dirty work, I see. You know, you could aspire to be so much more." After a brief pause, he gestured towards the Lycan. "Take it. Consider it a gift." With those final words, Winter walked off, leaving the elders in a state of contemplation. They were indeed pawns in the Necromancer's game, a realization that weighed heavily on them. Yet, Winter's remarks lingered in their minds. Was there a chance for redemption? Could Winter, a seemingly powerful player in this dark game, offer them a path back to something greater than servitude? As the elders pondered their circumstances, trapped in a web of their own making, yet subtly offered a glimmer of hope by the enigmatic figure of Winter. Chapter 7. The eve of war. In the heart of the undead metropolis, the Necromancer worked feverishly on the carcass of the deceased Lycan. His movements were rapid, his focus intense, as he dissected and analyzed, mumbling to himself in a mix of frustration and bewilderment. "How can it be?" he pondered aloud, searching for the elusive answer that could unlock the Lycan's secrets. After hours of exhaustive examination, he reached a moment of bitter realization. With a roar of anger, he hurled the Lycan's body off the operating table. "There's nothing, no biological explanation. It must be something else," he concluded, exasperated by the enigma. Forced to abandon his efforts, the Necromancer turned his thoughts to an alternative strategy. The reports from the elders about Winter's departure from the human camp and the camp's potential vulnerability played on his mind. This is the perfect moment to strike before the Lycans can expand their ranks with the humans, he determined. The sound of impending warfare echoed through the undead metropolis. Legions of the undead were summoned, amassing for a final assault on the human camp. Wagons loaded with vats of green goo were readied, along with catapults primed to launch the substance when the time was right. The ground shook under the mass of marching undead, a macabre army on the move. Simultaneously, the Alpha mobilized its entire pack. The gigantic werewolf, its every step causing tremors, led the pack through the woods towards the human camp. The Alpha's plan was clear: to dominate the camp and claim the humans for their kind. Meanwhile, in the human camp, reports of movement from both the undead and the Lycans spurred frantic preparations for an imminent attack. The air was thick with tension as all factions braced for what seemed an inevitable clash that would determine the fate of the survivors. Perched on a distant hill, a solitary figure watched the unfolding drama with a detached curiosity. Professor Winter, the most potent entity in this game of survival, observed the converging forces with a mix of interest and ennui. To him, the upcoming battle was a mere unfolding of events, a chess game where he held the ultimate power, yet chose not to intervene. The stage was set for a climactic confrontation at the human camp, with all factions converging in a battle that promised to be both devastating and decisive. Winter, the enigmatic observer, remained aloof yet watchful, his involvement, or lack thereof, holding the potential to sway the outcome of this final battle. Chapter 8. Prelude to the final stand. As the tale of Crimson Dawn reaches its climactic threshold, anticipation builds for the final episode. The stage is set for a grand confrontation, with all factions poised on the brink of an all-out war. The human camp, fortified yet vulnerable, braces for the imminent clash with both the undead legions and the formidable Lycan pack. As the forces converge, questions hang in the air, charged with the electricity of impending conflict. Will there be a definitive victor in this struggle for survival, or will the battle see the fall of all factions, leaving a world in ruins? The final episode promises to reveal the fate of the human camp, the ambitions of the Necromancer, the resolve of the Lycan Alpha, and the role of the enigmatic Professor Winter, the most powerful piece in this chessboard of apocalypse. Brace yourselves for the ultimate showdown, in a world where the lines between hero and villain blur, where survival is a daily gamble, and where power plays are as deadly as the creatures that roam the land. The finale is set to be a spectacle of strategy, strength, and the indomitable human spirit. The next episode, the finale of Crimson Dawn, is coming soon, promising to deliver an epic conclusion to this saga of darkness, light, and the shades in between. Stay tuned for the breathtaking conclusion, where the fate of a world hanging in the balance will finally be unveiled. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.